Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar from Robertson Cooper. We've called it Staying Well in Uncertain Times and Finding the Route Back to Good Days at Work. I think there's no doubt that we are in uncertain times. There's a huge crisis going on in the background here, and I'm pretty sure that for most people, having a good day at work is more challenging than it would have been, say, a couple of months ago. Here at Robertson Cooper, we spent a couple of decades actually looking at the factors that impact on whether people are having a good day at work or not. And the core of that, as far as we see it, is psychological well-being. Now, everybody is somewhere on that kind of continuum of psychological well-being, from someone with serious mental health problems through to somebody who's really feeling very healthy from a psychological point of view. And the core of having a good day at work is being somewhere good on that continuum of psychological well-being. And there's an awful lot that can be done to ensure and to help people to get there. And in fact, those things are not very different now. The principles involved are not very different now than they would have been before all of this began. What's different is the context that we're working in. And of course, the context is actually extremely different right now. We know from the work that we've done over a number of years what the core things are that are important for people in terms of them having a good day at work. Positive experiences. Okay, everybody has some degree of negative experience at work, maybe quite a few. But if you have no positive experiences at all, and work is literally just a negative grind from the start of the day to the end, and if that carries on for quite a few days, then life gets really challenging. So having something in the workplace, having some kind of positive experience is an important ingredient, but it's not by any means the only thing. If you look at the bottom right of those four factors that are up on the screen now, task achievement, people sometimes think that feeling good at work is about being relaxed, not having much on, being able to take your time over things. Not really. Actually, feeling good at work, think about when you feel at your best at work. And my assertion would be that's not when you have not very much to do and you're sitting with your feet up. I think people feel at their best when you've just achieved something that was a challenge, something that was difficult to achieve. So having things that are challenging in the workplace is actually quite healthy, as long as you've got the resources and the ability to overcome them. Social relationships, clearly important at work. I mean, in fact, for most of us, we spend an awful lot of time at work, and a lot of our relationships with people come through the workplace. People differ in the extent to the level of interaction they might want with others, but everybody needs that to some degree or other, needs some positive relationships with colleagues. And the final ingredient there in the bottom left, work that has impact and purpose, work that we feel is worthwhile. That's what it really needs to be. Now, of course, for some people, NHS at the moment, clearly their work is particularly meaningful. But everybody, to some extent, needs to feel that they're not wasting their day, that you're doing something that's actually valuable and worth doing. I mentioned before that at Robertson Cooper, we look at the underlying psychology and the science that underpins all of this. There are lots of things that are available at the moment, lots of free resources available, and most of these things are things that are fairly generic. So they're guidelines, they're top 10 top tips or something like that that are useful to everybody. And those things can be quite helpful. But one of the things that we know really well from the underlying science here is that people are different. And it doesn't take a psychologist to tell you that. People are different. And what that means is, depending on the role that people have, for example, if you're a leader of a large organization, a manager within an organization, or somebody who's working hard as part of a team, there are probably different things that you need to be focused on at the moment. And on our website, you'll find links to sources of support that are helpful from that point of view, for leaders, for managers, for employees. But the core point that I want to make here is that individuals are different. Help and resources need to pay attention to individuals' key situations. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. Now, there is a set of phases that probably most of us will go through, and this is something that's fairly generic and general. It applies to everyone. And those phases are up here on this slide. Most of us right now are probably in phase 1, phase 2. Both of those phases quite high on emotional impact, quite troubling for us, quite difficult to get to grips with what we're doing, how we go about doing it. So there's the initial uncertainty, how we're going to manage, how we're going to work, how things are going to be, and then quite disruptive stage where we're trying to kind of adapt and move to stage 3, where we can actually start to work in a relatively normal way in the new environment. And eventually, we will get to phase 4. We will emerge from this and things will go back to some extent to how they were. But of course, they will be different as well. They won't just go back to how they were before, particularly if this is for some extended period, which most people seem to think is quite likely. So what can be done about this? Well, what we can do is draw on what is literally decades of research in work and organizational psychology and health and well-being at work. And we can pull that together into what you might think of as the science that underpins well-being. And there are 2 key parts to that that are really important. One is we have a very good understanding of the pressures in the workplace and the pressures that have an impact on people's psychological health and well-being. And we also know that because of the personality differences between people, they'll respond to these pressures differently, they'll build their resilience differently, and they'll interact with other people differently. And if you put those 2 things together to create something that can help find your way through this and come out at the other end having experienced a reasonably positive experience, then that's going to be very helpful. Like I said before, I think most people at the moment are in phase 1, phase 2 of those 4 phases that I showed before. And at the psychological level, I think we'll probably be experiencing some or all of those bullet points on the slide. I've been speaking to a lot of people recently, for instance, who are really quite overloaded. These are people working in office environments who are now working from home. Lots of Zoom calls, lots of phone calls, lots of Microsoft Teams calls, lots of emails, lots of calls for things to be done right now, difficulty contacting colleagues, finding new ways of working, and all of that is creating an overload. Maybe it's sucking some of the fun out of life, it's isolating people, and it's difficult to feel, like I said before, that sense of achievement that we all need from the workplace to feel like we're just not, we're just getting something out of it, we're just not wasting our time in the workplace. So we are there in phases 1 or 2, almost certainly. What's the best thing that can be done in that phase? Well, for me, I said before that the principles that underlie wellbeing science here are not actually any different compared to they would have been 3 months ago, 6 months ago. And the important issue is to examine, get a grip on, have a look at the key things that drive well-being in the workplace. And we know what they are really actually very well. And we know how these things impact on well-being. They revolve around 3 core things that have come out of the research. And those core things are demands, control, and resources and support. Demands: if you can't cope with the workload that you've got, clearly that's going to be troubling and difficult to deal with. Control is about having control over how you go about work, how you fulfill the goals and objectives of your job. And resources and support is about having adequate resources to enable you to actually do what you've got to do. All of those things for most people at the moment are probably out of balance compared with how they were before all of this started. What we do at Robertson Cooper is just stretch that out a little bit more into what we refer to as the 6 essentials: resources and communication, control, balanced workload, job security and change, work relationships, and job conditions. Balanced workload is about balancing up demands from outside work, inside work, and the goals and objectives that you've got at work. And of course, with many more people working at home, the boundaries between home and work are much more blurred probably than they were. Job security and change, well, clearly there are issues for many of us there, thinking about the security of the organisation that we work in, the long-term future, how things will be. So all of these things are probably a lot more troubling and a lot more difficult than they were before. They're certainly different, whether they're more troubling or not. They're certainly different for nearly all of us. So the best thing, as I said before, is try and get a grip on what those things are. And what we've done is put a free self-diagnostic tool on our website, and you can get to that by going through from the newsletter. If you got this from the newsletter, or however you've got to it, you can find that free diagnostic tool. And what that tool is designed to do is help you to understand within those 6 essentials where you are currently now, how things are different, and lead you through some helpful steps that might help you to get to somewhere that enables you to start feeling more balanced and having a good day at work. So I'd encourage you to get hold of that tool. As I said, it's free, it's self-diagnostic, it's only for you, nobody else. You don't need to share it with anyone else. You can, if you choose to, once you've done it, if you find that helpful. And have a go with that, see if it can help to reset things, reset your reality, take care of your energy in a way that's constructive and helpful. The other thing to do, I think, at this stage is focusing on good energy management techniques. And that's things like sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, movement and exercise. All of those things are helpful. And again, there are some links to resources that we've prepared that will help you to find sources of support in those various different areas. What we're going to do with this is have a series of webinars, and we will move on through the stages as we think people are moving through the stages. We'll also provide more help and support specifically for people in different roles, managers, etc., and so on, to try and help support everyone really through this very difficult time. By all means, get in touch with us here at Robertson Cooper if we can give you any more help and support. But mainly, get started on this process by using the free tool that I've talked to. And don't forget, we will get through this. We will work our way through to that fourth stage, and there will be a new normal. And let's hope that's a much better place. So stay well and take care, everybody. Goodbye.